Happy birthday, America. Thank the Lord for our freedoms and our independence. It's a wonderful week to be an American as we celebrate 250 years of freedom, independence, Constitution, rule of law, God-given rights. Praise the Lord. President Trump escalated his war of words against communism and communists. Lots more to come on that. Also, the White House just released a sweeping report exposing the Smithsonian and its anti-American ideology, literally pushing Marxism on our young people at taxpayer expense. But hopefully that will stop soon. We also have the Department of Justice unveiling a new report outlining a roadmap to restoring a proper understanding of religious liberty and the First Amendment. You are not going to want to miss this. This is huge, folks. RFK Jr., Secretary of Health and Human Services, removing the COVID-era liability protections for the concoctions masquerading as COVID injections. All that and much more. We're going to break down what these developments mean for you and for your family and for our country. Plus, we've got the latest on trade, surveillance, homeschooling, the biggest stories that the fake media would rather you never hear about. We've also got four outstanding guests joining us today. Former Iranian Revolutionary Guard member turned Christian leader Mohamad Faridi on what's going on in Iran, what's going on with the church there, what is happening with the regime, and of course on Islam. We also have Lauren Gideon, a returning guest. She is Director of Government Relations with Classical Conversations, to talk about the shocking order imprisoning a mom and a dad for homeschooling their daughters. Not because there was anything wrong with the homeschooling, but because they wouldn't indoctrinate them with crazy LGBT stuff. It sounds too crazy to be true, but it is. Stay tuned for more. We also have the data center controversy. Folks, everywhere in this country, the data centers are becoming a scandal. We have an incredible former insider in the industry joining to expose what's really going on and how you can protect yourself. We also have a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Mike Gonzalez, joining us to discuss this incredible White House report exposing the perversion of our nation's museums and our nation's history and its identity. You're not going to want to miss all of that and much more later in the program. Before we start, we got a word from the Word. This comes out of Jeremiah 18, chapter 18, verses 7 through 10. The Bible reads, "At one moment I might speak concerning a nation or concerning a kingdom to uproot, to pull down, or to destroy it. If that nation against which I have spoken turns from its evil, I will relent concerning the calamity I plan to bring on it. Or at another moment, I might speak concerning a nation or concerning a kingdom to build up or to plant it. If it does evil in my sight by not obeying my voice, then I will think better of the good with which I had promised to bless it." Folks, let that be a very, very sobering reminder. There is no reason in the world why God could not destroy our country right this moment. We have murdered 70 million of our own children. We have mocked him. We have expelled him from all of our institutions. And I'm telling you, God is patient. God is merciful, but he will only put up with it for so long. So let that be a reminder for all of us. God could take down our country at any moment, and we need to keep that in mind. Before we get into the day's news, I want to tell you about our friends over at 4RBs. So you don't have to be a beekeeper to care about this issue, and you don't have to be a beekeeper to know that something is going very wrong with RBs. But there is something that most people have not heard of yet. There's a new peer-reviewed published study showing you can have stronger, healthier hives using a new technology called the Pure Wave cell. We actually have one here, using it for all kinds of things here at the office and the farm and the studio. Beekeepers are literally reporting losses of 70% of their colonies, and yet when they're using these tools, something amazing happens. Only 10% of the colonies are being lost. All this in the study. And even if you don't care about bees, and you should, bees are kind of important, not just for the honey, but because we need them to eat. They pollinate our crops. They are literally essential for life on this planet. And also, according to the founder of 4RBs, Brent Knudsen, they are the canary in the coal mine, right? The same things that are making the bees sick and dying, yeah, those things are affecting us too. We're just a little bit bigger and a little bit more resilient. But folks, we need to be paying attention to this. It's not good. Bees are very sensitive. They are critical to the environment, and we need to know what's going on. So go check it out. It's at 4rbs.com. You can buy amazing honey, and when you buy the honey, it's actually going to support the incredible work they're doing, helping beekeepers keep their colonies so that we can eat, so that we can have honey and food. So go check it out, 4rbs.com. And when you use the promo code HIVE20, you're actually going to get a 20% discount on all of the incredible products they have there. So go check all of that out. Joining us today to discuss the news is the great Andrew Muller. He is the Chief of Operations here at Liberty Sentinel Media. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Alex. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Hey, did you have a wonderful and blessed Independence Day?
It was fantastic. Went on a boat, saw a whole bunch of fireworks, spent time with the family, and it doesn't get any better than that.
Hey, well deserved. And folks, I hope you also got to enjoy time with your family, time with your friends, and then even more importantly, time with the Lord, just to reflect incredible blessings that we've had in this country for so long. I mean, when you go to other countries, when you see how people in other parts of the world live, it should give you a new appreciation for just how blessed this country has been, just how wise our founding fathers were when they were reading the scriptures and trying to apply those things to political life. Now, at Mount Rushmore, on the eve of our celebration, America 250, Trump said, "You cannot be a communist and a patriot." Listen.
You can be loyal to Karl Marx, or you can be loyal to America. You can be a communist, or you can be a patriot. You cannot be both. As for those who peddle Marxist lies about our heritage, who tell our children that we live on stolen land or that our heroes were oppressors, they're doing something much worse than slandering our past. They are slandering and attacking our future. Not going to let that happen. They're trying to tear down the great American character, to destroy the people who declared independence, who crossed the Delaware, who settled the West, and who conquered the skies. You know who those people are. But we will never let that happen. Our American ancestors did not shed their blood at Concord and Trenton, Gettysburg and Shiloh, Midway and Normandy, just so that a band of thieves, radicals, and lunatics could come in and loot, pillage our nation. Our heroes died to win, build, and to save, and to build truly a great country, the greatest country ever in the world.
Thank you, Mr. President, for that. Now, at the massive America 250 event in D.C. on the 4th of July, Trump continued his rhetorical assault on communism. Check this out.
Of the American system, and the communist system has never worked. Our warriors did not fight communism on battlefields across the world, only to have that menace rear its ugly head right back here in America. We're not going to let it happen. We like to stop a threat like that immediately and before it begins. It's like a cancer. You got to cut it out. You got to cut it out fast.
Absolutely correct. And those comments are getting a lot of attention. I've been invited on NTD News and Newsmax all over the place just in the last few days to talk about what that means. Andrew, what do you make of this? I mean, we haven't heard a lot of American presidents for a long time talking about the threat of communism. You've got a lot of whiny people say, oh, it's McCarthyism 2.0. I mean, is Trump just making it up? Is there no communist threat?
There's totally a communist threat. All people have to do is look to Los Angeles or New York City to see the Democratic Socialists of America rise in their ranks. They're saying they own these cities, they own those provinces. And Trump is doing something that, as you said correctly, has not been said since truly Ronald Reagan's era, which is that communism's real. It's not only in China and across the world, it's also here within our own borders. And give credit where credit's due, Trump has actually been pushing back on these people. And this is Trump at his best. And I think that this is what he needs to be focusing on. Focus a little bit less on, foreign interventions, focus a little bit less on what's going on across the world, start to focus on issues here at home like immigration, the issue of communism. And that is where Trump is at his best. That's what won Trump the presidency in 20, I guess. Everybody got that one stolen from him. And then in 24. So he's exactly right about this. And I'm very grateful for his strong and true words on it.
Yeah, he's absolutely right to be speaking out about this. And folks, Robert Borton's from Classical Conversations, and I just released a book this year, Woke and Weaponized, How Karl Marx Won the Battle for American Education and How We Can Take It Back. We're not going to be able to take it back, and we're not going to be able to save our country unless we deal with the threat of this communist thinking that has now infected multiple generations of Americans. So kudos to the president for talking about that. They had a huge fireworks display in Washington, D.C. In fact, they broke the world record for the largest display ever. And if we can roll that while I'm talking, they had, 850,000 shots, if I'm not mistaken. Wonderful way to celebrate our country. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, the Department of Justice just released a massive report, folks. It's a draft so far, but it's really pretty boring title, Religious Liberty Commission. It says that far too often in our national life, religion is treated not as a protected and valued contribution to public life, but as a problem or annoyance to be managed, restricted, or sidelined. They said that safeguarding religious liberty requires more than defending legal rights after they've been violated. It requires cultivating a culture that understands why those rights exist in the first place. So this was done in pursuance to Donald Trump's executive order establishing the Religious Liberty Commission. And some really good people involved. Dr. Ben Carson, who, of course, we've interviewed here before as the vice chair of that commission. And they have some really good points about how perverted our understanding of the First Amendment has become. It doesn't mean you can't be a Christian and talk about Christ in the public sphere. It means the government shouldn't be dictating to you how you worship, how you believe, what you must believe. The report points out that religion is indispensable, that it builds moral character, strong families, and that really it's been an essential part of our nation's history, in particular Christian traditions and the biblical heritage that we have. They actually cite a lot of examples of abuses on this front that we have seen just in recent years. Students bullied for opposing the gender weirdness in the class, teachers told to remove their crosses or lose their jobs, a Navy SEAL who lost his pension near retirement over refusing to take these COVID concoctions, Jewish students excluded from government-funded programs at universities, parents lied to by government indoctrination camps masquerading as schools over gender and all kinds of stuff. There's so much to say about this, folks. You need to check out the report. They've got 12 recommendations that are really significant. They want people to know their rights. They want to repeal the Johnson Amendment. They want to fix religious accommodations in the military. A lot of good stuff in here. And I, for one, am excited that the Department of Justice has released this. Now, other big news from the Trump administration, Trump is actually declining to renew this massive USMCA, U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. Frankly, this thing was an atrocity. It was like NAFTA on steroids. It radically expanded the areas of law over which these North American tribunals and bureaucracies would have jurisdiction. In fact, I was asked by somebody advising Trump to prepare a memo on why this was such a bad idea. And I did not share that until just the other day. I posted it on X. You can go read it if you would like. But I would encourage people to look at what's going on here. This USMCA was exactly what Trump campaigned against. It was the idea that we're not going to have multilateral trade agreements that undermine our sovereignty. There is so much wrong with this. So just because Trump said we're not going to renew doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet. There's a lot more to go. There's now a 10-year countdown during which they're going to supposedly renew negotiations and figure it out. But Trump had a couple of interesting things to say. He said last month, I made the deal, and the primary reason I made the deal is that NAFTA was the worst trade deal I've ever seen. Yeah, and I made it better, but I had the right to terminate. And we hope that he will stick with that, folks. This was negotiated by the deep state cartel. U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer, an actual member of the Council on Foreign Relations. We don't need these people determining what our policy should look like. Now, we did have some major hearings in Congress about MK Ultra. I want you to listen to this little segment with Representative Anna Paulina Luna of Florida talking about it.
Is it, in your expert opinion, that Jack Ruby and Manson were assets of the intelligence agencies specifically pertaining to MK Ultra? Were they MK Ultra victims?
Yeah, theoretically, Manson, I've never been able to prove absolutely. Jack Ruby, I believe. This is something else. The Warren Commission investigation on the Warren Commission was Alan Dulles, the former CIA director, who authorized and ran MK Ultra until he was fired by President Kennedy. The liaison to the committee for the CIA, who handled the information coming from the CIA back and forth to the Warren Commission, was Richard Helms, who was a direct supervisor of Jolly West. They knew who West was. They knew that what West was capable of and what they had paid him to do and what he had reported to them that he could do, including inducing.
There's a lot more where that came from. Here's Congressman Tim Burchett.
Just leaving hearing on MK Ultra. If you don't know what that is, it was the program the CIA used to, they're giving people acid and mind control. And they claimed they weren't doing it. And then they got sued and they found out they were doing it. But now they say they're not doing it anymore. So I guess, and my question was, which lie do we believe? And they seem to think that it's still going on.
Yeah, folks, these are the CIA's mind control programs, parts of which were exposed by the Church Committee. They tried to shred all the documents. Now, there were problems with the Church Committee, don't get me wrong. But yes, the CIA was involved in mind control experiments. It was horrific. They were using drugs and torture, and the tentacles of this go so deep. It's so abominable. And as of yet, we haven't seen any huge explosive revelations. I mean, it was interesting to hear that about Jack Ruby and Lee Harvey Oswald, but I really think Congress needs to pursue this more. We also had Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announcing that we're ending the emergency liability protections for the COVID-19 vaccine makers. He had a lot to say. He said the circumstances no longer exist to justify emergency use of drugs and biological products during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so hopefully these things will be pulled off the market now that the manufacturers realize they could be sued into the ground. Before we go to break, folks, there's a really crazy new film out called Citizen Vigilante about an American who goes to Europe and starts like slaughtering Islamist jihadists who are like gang raping girls and stuff. I know a lot of people are going to be tempted to think like, yeah, that's what we need. I think there's an agenda here. Don't watch the movie. There are some scenes that I wish I had never seen. They're horrific. The murder, the sex stuff. I just want to warn you against it, folks, because I know a lot of people are getting all excited about this. Like, yeah, let's go get the bad guys because the court system's failing. I think this is actually an effort to stir up a civil war, discredit our institutions, our legal traditions. So just watch out, folks. Don't fall for it. And then Paris mayor, deputy mayor blaming the United States and our CO2 emissions for the heat wave in France when French people wonder why they can't have AC. So stay with us. We're going to be right back after this break with some incredible guests. You're not going to want to miss it.
If you've been following Alex Newman's reporting on the Great Taking, you already know the laws governing your IRA and your 401k were quietly changed. What you may not know is what to do about it, specifically for your accounts. My name is Andrew Winnett. I'm a certified financial fiduciary and the founder of Retirement Renegade. I spent $1 million producing the Retirement Reset, the documentary Alex Newman appears in alongside Tucker Carlson, Ben Stein, Lauren Seidel-Baker from ITR Economics, and more. Right now, I'm offering Liberty Sentinel listeners two things completely free. First, stream the Retirement Reset. Go to retirementrenegade.com/liberty and use promo code LIBERTY at checkout. Watch the full film and see the evidence yourself. Second, once you have watched it, book a free 15-minute retirement income clarity session. I will show you specifically how your accounts are structured, where the vulnerabilities are, and what a protected retirement plan looks like for your situation. Free, no obligation. Go to retirementrenegade.com/liberty. That is retirementrenegade.com/liberty. Promo code LIBERTY. Do it today.
Folks, Iran is still in the headlines for obvious reasons. They just had the massive funeral for the dead supreme leader, the Ayatollah. And it looks like the Iranian regime is not only going to stay in place, but is going to have access to significant international funding and is going to play a major role in the future of the Strait of Hormuz. As a Christian, one obvious question for me is, what happens to the nation's Christians? And there are many of them. In fact, Christianity is growing very rapidly all throughout Iran. Joining us to discuss all this and more is Mohamad Faridi. He is the president of Iranian Christians International. He's the author of Forsaking My Father's Religion. He actually served 2 years in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, left Islam, and now is ministering to the church in Iran. Mohamad, thank you very much for joining us today. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
That's great to have you here. Thank you. So let's start just with the geopolitical angle. What is the future right now for Iran in terms of global geopolitics? What's the future of the regime? It looks like it's going to stay in place. And what does that mean for the Iranian people?
Absolutely. No Iranian who is not on the side of the evil wants this regime to stay in power. The Iranian people are sick and tired. You call this, you mentioned that Iranian supreme leader. He's the supreme dictator. No Iranian has voted for him. He's an illegitimate dictator, bloodthirsty mullah who killed thousands. He's responsible for the death of Iranian people, the Persian people, Americans and the Jews, Muslims and non-Muslims. So the only people that cry in his death are the people who are benefiting from his regime, his evil politics, that they're somehow sad. But the Iranian people, as far as I'm concerned, the Church of Iran, the Christians, the Iranian people, majority of them, they were dancing and celebrating his death. Thousands of videos circulated February 28th when the Americans and the IDF bombed him and killed him. They did us a service by removing this. This regime will not stay in power. It cannot sustain itself. I believe it is with all of my heart. They might buy time now with the negotiations, but their negotiation cannot last. This regime thinks that the annihilation of the Jews is their eschatology, is the ushering of their Mahdi to come back. And Israel will never put up with that. America might be thousands of miles away from that situation, but Israel is 2 countries over. If you look at Iraq, Syria, then we have the border of Israel. And those people have to deal with this rogue state, these bullies in the Middle East, and they will not. And Israel will take care of the business by the grace of God.
Fascinating take. What do we know about these allegedly new leaders? I mean, we're hearing different things. We've had people in Washington, D.C. say that they seem more moderate and more sensible than the old leaders. We've seen other people say they might be more radical. What's your assessment of the current folks in charge of the regime there?
Absolutely. If day and night you were afraid for your life, if you were hunted down by the Mossad, by the CIA, and to join your 72 virgins in paradise, you would be quickly moderate too. I mean, the bombs, the rockets, the drones will make you moderate. They're evil. They are a bunch of perverts. They believe that Islam has taken over the world, and the whole world has to belong to Islam, and that necessary by force, necessary by coercion, doesn't matter to them. And now after we have an adult in the White House that is dealing with this bully. They have realized quickly that they need to be negotiating. We need to now be tolerable toward other nations. Otherwise, they're not. This is a mask they're putting on. These people, I have been part of them. I have served with them. I know how they think. They really believe that they have been appointed by Allah as that government in the absence of Mahdi to rule the world, and anything they do, it is just, it is holy, it is correct. Christians and Jews are corrupt and defiled and unclean. Therefore, they give themselves all sorts of rights to have a condescending look if you're non-Muslim, non-Shias. Therefore, now because for 48 days the sky of Iran was the highway of the IDF and the American jets, now they have decided, because they don't want to die right at this moment for the cause that they want the Iranian people die for, the martyrdom. Now they have decided to take a different route because they were forced to. In the Islamic mindset, power is the language that is transferred as leadership. If you show them diplomacy, if they show them negotiation, they take that as weakness and they feed off of that weakness. Always, theocracies, always this dictatorship always feeds on weakness, and we had so many weak presidents so far that they always feed off of that. And now we have an adult in the White House that is showing them, no, if you take a wrong step, we'll break your foot. As a result, now they're coming to the negotiations and putting up with all sort of things.
Wow. Mohamad, we've only got a couple minutes left. One of the things that you do through your ministry is you try to teach Christians how to reach Muslims with the gospel, with the Great Commission. I think for a lot of American Christians, Islam is kind of like a whole nother world. Like, we don't even know where you start with this. So in the last couple minutes we have, what can American Christians do to try to reach the Islamic peoples of the Middle East, the Islamic people in Iran, with the saving truth of Jesus Christ?
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity first to share something like that. It is when we talk about Islam or Islamic regimes or Islamic politics, people usually thinks we're some bunch of Islamophobes or we don't Muslims. I just want you to know that last year in our ministry we had over 1,200 salvations. That is 2025, and I teach across this nation and to other believers around the world how to reach Muslims. When you come across as a weak Christian with no convictions, you're very apologetic, you're kind of tiptoeing around to not be offensive. Oh, I don't want to be offending. They have no respect for such Christianity, for such religion, for such faith. You need to stand firm in what you believe. You need to know the truth. You have to know this as a Christian. I have the truth, and they're bound by lies and a satanic, demonic, diabolic religion, and I'm trying to help them out of that. If you have that kind of a conviction, you always will win, and the Holy Spirit always comes to prove His word, which is Jesus. We share the truth with Muslims all over the world. And as a result of them seeing our convictions, they know what we believe it is the truth, then they have the tendency to listen to you. Otherwise, if you would have gone around apologizing, saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a Christian, I'm sorry, oh, we have done so much evil in the name of Americanism. If you go with that approach, good luck.
Amen. Folks, there is nothing that will transform a nation faster and more effectively than the light of the Word of God. You can find more about Mohamad and his ministry at IranChristians.org. The book, it's called Forsaking My Father's Religion, which, by the way, if you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, leaving Islam is a capital offense. It is punishable by death. Mohamad, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your insights on this, and I hope we can get you back again very soon.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, folks, stay with us. We're going to be right back with much more here on the Sentinel Report.
In the grand tapestry of nature, a delicate balance weaves life's intricate threads. Today, this balance is faltering more and more as bee populations face unprecedented challenges. Without a collective effort to rescue our bees and enhance biodiversity, we're headed for devastation on a global scale. But amidst the chaos, a solution has emerged. A rallying cry echoes, a call to protect these guardians of our food chain. Introducing 4R Bees, a technology-driven organization that is saving bees globally and organically every day. At 4R Bees, we understand the critical role that bees play in maintaining the balance of our ecosystem. Saving the bees is synonymous with saving our planet, and 4R Bees is at the forefront of this mission. Visit 4rbees.com to learn more about how you can save the bees and redefine the course of our future.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Folks, terrible things are happening to our fellow Christian homeschoolers in other parts of the world. Case in point, a horror story out of Brazil. A rogue judge has just sentenced a loving mother and father to 50 days in prison for homeschooling their daughters and not teaching them the mandatory gender tolerance, LGBT, rainbow, sex propaganda. And unfortunately, this comes amid a global attack on home education coming down from the United Nations, from UNESCO, and we're even seeing early manifestations of this in the United States. It's absolutely essential that parents and Americans resist this evil in its tracks. Joining us to discuss all this and much more is my friend Lauren Gideon. She is the Director of Government Relations for Classical Conversations. She also leads the Education Independence Initiative. It's a massive and growing coalition of groups and people dedicated to basically getting the government out of education and restoring that to where it belongs, to the family. Lauren, thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me and for all of your work on this topic of freedom and education both.
Well, it's an honor to have you here. Thank you. And I love CC. Of course, my own children are enrolled in CC. I serve as a fellow there and can't say enough good things about it. We appreciate them so much. Almost 150,000 students all over the world. It's amazing, including all over Latin America. But Lauren, I want to ask you about this case in Brazil. I think a lot of Americans are looking at this and they're like, wow, that's terrible. But that's like, a third world country on the other side of the world. Who cares? Why is this significant for Americans?
I think it's very significant. I think we can see the remnants of the globalist agenda in all parts of the world. And as the world goes, the United States will eventually follow suit. My very own neighbor saw this headline, texted me, very concerned about the implications, not familiar with home education or the current circumstances, but understands the implications. He says, stay safe out there, because he understands the implications of this as it trickles into our own country as well.
Yeah. And we do have a lot of people, Lauren, I mean, prominent people, not just like kooks with tinfoil hats. I mean, you got a law professor at Harvard, Elizabeth Bartholet, and we just got to get rid of homeschooling. We need a presumptive ban on home education. We had Connecticut just a few months ago now pass a new law saying that parents have to beg for permission from CPS, child welfare, to be able to educate their own children. We've seen terrible bills, assaults on home education and parental rights in Illinois and Minnesota, and I think we're going to see a lot more. What's your take on where we're at right now in the United States? Is our freedom to educate our children at risk?
I think the timeliness of your question couldn't be more appropriate. Following the celebration of Independence Day and the preservation of rights, governments are instituted for the preservation of rights. So what we have is a cataclysmic paradigm collision where we're saying who is actually in charge, who has a right to educate. Is this the domain, the jurisdiction of the state, or is this a God-given right that the governments are instituted to protect? And so these worldviews are in conflict, and the timing could not be more imminent to protect these rights of parents.
Yeah, it's really concerning, Lauren, and we're seeing now very troubling trends in the United States. And I think a lot of people in Republican states just assume that they're fine, like our legislature would never do anything like that. And yet, right now, we see Republican states that have passed these so-called, government-funded school choice options say, well, we've got to have accountability. We can't just like give tax money out and not even know where it's going. Do you think people in Republican states are in danger here?
Absolutely. I think the fact that the government education system has been raising our government officials is starting to show. We have a paradigm shift where we believe fundamentally that the state has an obligation to raise its citizens. And that is in direct opposition of our worldview that we think God gave parents the mandate to educate kids. And so even in our Republican conservative states, the sneaky worldview is penetrating and causing Republicans even to generate policies that reveal their paradigm or their beliefs that the state have a legitimate claim in this space of education.
Yeah, 100%. And that brings me to Texas. God bless Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. We all love Texas. Everybody's got their guns and their big pickup trucks, and they just had some great 4th of July celebrations. But they just passed a new measure. This just passed less than a couple weeks ago now. The State Board of Education mandated Bible reading in public schools all across the state of Texas. And as for me, like I don't believe you can actually have an education without the Bible. So I mean, for me, it's like, well, duh, of course you have to have Bible reading. How could you call it education otherwise? But this raises, you and I talked a little bit during the break, this raises some issues of, separation of church and state. Like, what about Islamic parents? Do they need to fund this kind of stuff? How do you see this very tricky issue?
Yeah, you bring up separation of church and state. And I think right now we're being forced to wrestle with the fact that we don't have a good grasp on what this means. It's being weaponized against Christian conservatives to say, don't bring your faith with you into government spaces. Well, we know that's not possible. People are their whole selves. They bring their mind, their body, their soul with them wherever they go. And so it's being weaponized against Christians. On the other hand, we need to ask, where did this idea come from? I love the, Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom that argued, Thomas Jefferson argued, Almighty God hath made the mind free. And he argues you cannot compel, you cannot force people to attend religious activities or to fund them, which I think all of those arguments to the religious space actually have implications in the education space as well, because education, we would probably say education is discipleship. The only question is, what worldview are you discipling children into? And so if we're going to force people to either attend through compulsion laws or fund through taxpayer-funded education, we're in violation of these very ideas that laid the groundwork for our American idea of separation of church and state. And so in Texas, all of these interesting things are center stage right now with both the Bible being added to the government curriculum. I'd argue that the education in Texas is already religious, but adding the Bible to it is another layer of obviousness. I wouldn't ever want to force my non-Christian friends to fund Christian education in the same way I wouldn't want my Christian friends being compelled to fund Islamic education or secular humanist education. So the reality we must wrestle with is that anytime we're forcing people to attend or to fund education, we're in violation of, freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, those kinds of big American ideas.
Yeah, and a simple answer to this would just be to go back to what the Bible teaches. Parents, you're responsible for the education of your children. Stop asking your neighbor to pay for the education of your children, or at least ask them nicely if they want to fund it voluntarily, rather than sending guys with guns over there to threaten them and take their property. Lauren, we've only got a couple minutes left. I wish we had more time. There's so many angles to discuss here. But before we let you go, tell us a little bit about Classical Conversations. Tell us a little bit about the Education Freedom Initiative.
Absolutely. Classical Conversations has been a pivotal experience in our family's life. I have 7 kids that I homeschooled, and that's how I found Classical Conversations. That's how I found my love for American history, for liberalism, for the ideas that founded our country. And so it's been a huge eye-opening experience. And what I love is being connected to this network of families that are all pursuing truth, goodness, and beauty, a Christian worldview, a classical education within community. It's a beautiful experience that I love explaining to others. But within that network, then we have this Education Independence Initiative. It's what does it mean to take a classical Christian worldview into the public domain and carry that with us? And so in the Education Independence Initiative, we're committed to building coalitions, to building relationships, and taking the experience of education and these founding principles in our Christian worldview into the public domain, arguing and contending for truth, goodness, and beauty within the political space. And so if you're looking for us, we are at www.chooseeducationindependence.com. That is the home of the initiative. We're also on all social media platforms. We love to have monthly seminars, even where we wrestle with these ideas, because we know that we need to rally around them if we're going to have an effect within our republic. It requires us to build relationships, to propagate ideas and contend for them in the public space. So that's a little bit about what we're doing.
That's fantastic. Folks, I can agree with all of that. Like I said, I've had my own children in Classical Conversations since we've been back in America, and it has been such a blessing for our family. It's just a second to none program. And I was actually involved from the beginning with the Choose Education Independence. You can find that at chooseeducationindependence.com. If you're interested in learning more about Classical Conversations, you can find it at classicalconversations.com/LSM. Lauren, Gideon, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for all of your very important work, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. God bless. All right, folks, stay with us. We will be right back with more here on the Sentinel Report. Hey guys, Alex Newman here. I want to tell you about a wonderful ministry that is doing incredibly important work. That's Public School Exit. I am very blessed to serve as the volunteer executive director. We've got an incredible team, and our mission is simple. Try to get as many children into the safe sanctuary of Christian education as humanly possible, as quickly as possible. Government schools are no place for children. Children need to learn about God. They need to learn the Word of God. They need real education. They need to learn how to read, write, and do math. And we all know that's not what's happening in the government schools. In fact, what's happening is they're turning our children into revolutionaries, little radicals ready to burn down our churches and our civilization, not to mention our families. So go check it out today, publicschoolexit.com. We've got all kinds of resources for parents, for pastors, for taxpayers, for everybody down the line. And folks, this is one of the most critical battles. So go check out our partners at publicschoolexit.com, publicschoolexit.com. Concern about these massive data centers is spreading across the country faster than the data centers themselves. Everywhere you go, every little town, every little hamlet, every little community, you're seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of angry citizens getting together and demanding an end to the proliferation of these data centers. And nobody can really tell you what they do, what they're for, but we all kind of have a bad feeling about them. Like the people involved are just kind of creepy. They've got a long track record of spying on us. And of course, they don't share our values. Can't think of anybody better to discuss all of this than my friend Sean Patrick Tario. He is the founder of MARK37. He actually spent most of his career in the data center industry, although not for the evil reasons that so many of the bigwigs there today are doing. He also wrote a book. The book on this is called The Data Center Co-Location Industry Playbook. It's kind of like data centers for dummies. Sean, welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us.
Glad to be here, and this is an apropos topic to jump back into.
Man, I'll tell you what, all across Florida, it's become like one of the most important topics that people are asking the gubernatorial candidates about. Every time one of these announcements comes out that they're going to be building a data center here or there, you're just getting like flooded city council meetings with angry, and it like transcends parties too. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, the environmentalists are mad because you're going to cut down the trees. The conservatives are mad because you're going to spy on us and make our power costs go up. What's the deal? I mean, you worked in these data centers, you worked in this industry for decades. How should we be thinking about this, Sean?
Yeah, so I think most people don't quite realize that these data centers have been built for the last 30 years all over, not just the United States, but around the world. There's already over 3,500 data centers all over the United States, and they're building on track to build another 1,000 or so over the next couple of years. So people are focused on the net new ones. And the whole reason why I actually left that industry, as I know you know well, is I started following the money and realized that the large private equity firms were buying up these facilities and these companies that owned and operated these facilities. So it's big real estate investment trusts. So it's not just your Facebooks, your Googles, your Microsofts that own these facilities. They actually lease space inside these buildings from these big real estate investment trusts that are owned by the private equity firms. And it's all the names that you know of, from BlackRock to State Street to Vanguard, and big funds that put their money and park their money into this industry, because there's a lot of money to be made on the real estate side, because they're making anywhere from $30 to $50 a square foot in these facilities, versus on the regular, enterprise commercial real estate side, they're making a tenth of that. So a lot of money started moving into that space, and it was really catered towards the big tech companies, because they were taking down not just like a couple cabinets worth of servers, which is like maybe you can fit 15 servers inside, 20 servers inside that cabinet. They were taking down entire swaths of space that consumes megawatts of power. So the whole industry started catering to the Googles, the Microsofts, the Twitters, the big tech infrastructure companies, to give them all the space and power that they wanted as quickly as possible, because they were consuming those leases and taking down all the space and power. So first thing people have to realize is look around. These data centers already exist everywhere. The second is people are concerned about a lot of different things. Environmentals, yes, consuming the water, noise pollution, all these different aspects that come into the data center industry. But what's very important to realize is the new technology that operates and runs these facilities doesn't require all that much power, and really shouldn't require water. So my question these days is, who's designing these new data centers that say that they're going to consume all of this water and all this power? And from a power perspective, no municipality is going to allow a new data center owner operator to come into their community without charging them millions of dollars, if not tens of millions of dollars, to build out new substations and new infrastructure so that they can support that new load. So I think there is, to some degree, a little bit of misinformation going on in the industry, where people are like, well, we're going to have brownouts and blackouts because all the power is going to be run to these data centers if they get built. But my big question is, from a water perspective, these data centers should not be using water. So my conspiracy hat comes on, and I'm saying, well, where's that water then going to be used for? What's going on underneath these facilities? And I get very confused as to what's happening. Or they're just being designed by like really old architects and old engineers who don't have newer technologies that don't require anywhere near that much water. So there's a lot of weird, strange things going on. But to your point, one of our people on our team actually was at one of these rallies up in Spokane, Washington. And he was up, and he's a constitutional Christian patriot. He was up there with an Antifa member talking out about the data center at the same event. So it's, you're right. It spans both aisles these days.
Yeah, it's funny. Politics sometimes makes very strange bedfellows. Now, you actually started a company with privacy in mind, and I've got one of your products, the Ghost phones here, MARK37. I just love this thing. It's got an open source operating system designed to shield your privacy. Hopefully, we can keep some of our data from being gobbled up by these data centers and then being weaponized against us. We've got a few minutes left. Sean, tell us a little bit about MARK37, why you started it. And I do want to tell people, you can get on a webinar with Sean's team If you go to mark37.com/liberty, you can hop on a webinar with their guys and they'll walk you through this. But Sean, tell us a little bit about the company, why you decided to start it.
Sure. So these phones that we carry around in our pockets and the laptops that we use all day, every day, we just have to realize that these are psychological warfare weapons, and it's a tool. They're tools at the end of the day, and we have to reclaim ownership of these tools. So just like a data center is really just a technology asset, and in the hands of a psychopath, that technology asset is going to be used to harvest, steal, manage all of our data, and then use it to further influence and try to enslave us. That's the same thing that's happening with our devices. So your phones, your laptops, your tablets, all these things, if the operating system of those devices is controlled by a company that's controlled and owned and operated by psychopaths, that's a problem. That's like handing someone a firearm to go fight in a war and saying that all of the data, all of the comms, all of the GPS tracking, the camera, the microphone on that firearm that's being recorded is being fed to the enemy that you're about to go fight. Like, that makes no sense. So our company is really taking the tech that exists, that geeks who are interested in privacy and security already know how to use, and making it accessible to everyday people like you, who can say, hey, I don't want to not use technology. I just want to use it safer. But that requires education, requires some training, which is why I do highly recommend people check out mark37.com/liberty, because you can actually watch a 90-minute webinar where we walk through all the ways that you're getting screwed by big tech right now. And then really what's most important is what we can do about it, because there's so many things we can do about it. And that's why, I'm wearing the shirt that I have now. This is our company shirt that says faith is a verb, but on the back it says no more excuses, because we have no more excuses. The technology is there. This is like someone saying, well, I have to keep eating junk food because it's the only option I have available to me, when that's simply not the case. You have to just do a little bit of research, and you can find where the local farmers market is, or where the fresh produce and protein is that you can go to buy. So we're just making all this information and technology accessible, useful, and then giving you a community of people that you can interact with and work with to use these tools with.
Yeah, Sean, I'm really glad there's people like you on the job. I've been saying for years, we need Christians and conservatives and patriots to be involved in technology. Otherwise, the evildoers are going to run wild and we're not even going to know what they're doing. So, folks, go check it out. You can find them at mark37.com/liberty. It's an awesome company. We're just so pleased to be able to partner with them. I'll tell you what, I just have loved this ghost phone that I got, totally de-Googled and not sending my data to all the evildoers. Sleep a little bit easier at night. Sean, really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for what you're doing. We'll get you back soon. And thanks for sharing your insights on these data centers. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. You know where to find me if you got more questions.
All right. Hey, thanks so much. Folks, that was Sean Patrick Tario, founder of mark37.com. Stay with us. We're going to be right back with one more segment here on the Sentinel Report.
Your children are your legacy. Treat them as such. When you homeschool with Classical Conversations, they connect you with a local community of like-minded families who not only learn together, but do life together. They equip homeschool parents just like you, or grandparents, with the confidence to raise bright, observant students who have a lifelong love of learning. Please visit classicalconversations.com/LSM to learn more.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. I'm Alex Newman, your host here. Thanks for staying with us, folks. The White House just dropped an incredibly significant report. It's called Saving America's Story, just in time for our 250th celebration of independence. It's a marvelous report about the horrors that are happening through the taxpayer-funded Smithsonian Museum system. They're promoting social justice. They're promoting the idea that America is racist. They're looking at history through a Marxist lens. Joining us to discuss all of this and much more, we have a very special guest, Mike Gonzalez. He is the Angelus Arredondo e Pluribus Unum Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He's got an incredible report about this at the Examiner. Mike, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. I hear you very well.
Excellent. It's great to have you, Mike. Thank you. So talk to us about this stunning report exposing some of what's been going on with the leadership at the Smithsonian.
Well, it symbolically dropped just before the fireworks. I was in Annapolis myself with part of my family, and it was a wonderful, Annapolis was the nation's capital for a short time between 1782 and 1783. And then I saw that the report dropped after that. No, just before that. And it's symbolic because what the Smithsonian has done, it has not just ignored and failed to celebrate our glorious history. and what are national museums for? National museums are there to transmit culture and heritage to future generations. To some of Europe's best museums, El Prado, they does that in Spain. Le Louvre does that in France. The Smithsonian does the opposite. It's there to denigrate American heritage and history, especially under present leadership. And I'm talking specifically about Secretary Lonnie Bunch III, Anthea Hardig at the History Museum, but all of the museums are bad. Even the Air and Space Museum has bad exhibits. I don't know how they can spoil that. So let me just put a final touch on this, and maybe you want to talk more about this. Prior to the anniversary of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration, the big story was these communist candidates winning elections from New York to the West Coast. Now we see why. Our institutions, starting with our biggest museum complex, the biggest in the world, the Smithsonian, not only does not teach them to love America and respect America, it teaches Americans to hate America and denigrate it.
Yeah, it really does. It's frankly, it's grotesque. I mean, it's at the point where I don't even feel like I can take my children to the Smithsonian to learn about our country because they're going to have their minds filled with poisonous ideas, denigrating our founders, denigrating the incredible things that our nation has always stood for. Mike, there are some recommendations in the report. Talk to us about what you think the Trump administration and what the Congress could do to try to rein this in.
Well, Congress, I think, needs to hold hearings. And Congress needs to be serious about, we now appropriate $1.08 billion with a B dollars a year. That's a lot of change from the hard-paying American taxpayer, and gives it to the Smithsonian. And it's about 63% of its budget. So the Smithsonian has to be responsive to the American taxpayer. But I think ultimately what needs to happen is at the Board of Regents, which is headed by the Chief Justice of the United States, Roberts, and by the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. John Roberts and J.D. Vance need to get serious about firing Lonnie Bunch III, the Secretary of the Smithsonian, Anthea Hardig, the head of the History Museum, Kevin Gover. They have to stop the Latino Museum from being built. The Latino Museum is going to be also a part of the Smithsonian, is going to be a hothouse, an incubator of hatred of America, grievances of America. This thing cannot be built. So we need to fire the leadership and try to fix what is fixable there. And why I say that, what is fixable, you take a look at the museum industry, the curators, the art conservators, the art historians. If you take a look at the donations they make to political parties, they're over 95, 96, 97% Democrat. These are very liberal professions now. So we need to start from the very beginning and figure out how to fix museums.
Yeah. Mike, I get the sense that the ridiculous situation at the Smithsonian is more a symptom of the problem than the problem itself. How did we get into this mess, and what kind of like systemic changes need to be made across society so that something like this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, I wrote my last book with Catherine Gorka. We wrote it put together. We published it 2 years ago, Next Gen Marxism, on how the Marxist left had taken over all the cultural institutions. This is the result of that. They had taken over K through 12 education. They had taken over higher ed. They have taken over the museums. They have taken over the art houses. They have taken over the publishers. They have taken over the media. All the industries that create meaning, because the Marxist left went cultural in the 60s. They understood the power of culture. They gave up on armed revolution, and they want to obtain the Marxism this way. And indeed, we're seeing, again, to go back to this, communists being elected. Zohar Mamdani, the mayor of New York City, our biggest city, is a communist. He's not a democratic socialist. He's a communist who quotes Marx, not just the manifesto. You know, the manifesto is quoted all the time by everybody because it's seeped into society so deeply. He quotes different parts of Marx's writings, and he wants to take property away from landlords. This is communism 101. And we have the Katie Wilson, the mayor of Seattle. This is coast to coast. These are communists. And why do we have that? Because the institutions, starting with the Smithsonian, have taught them to be ashamed of their heritage and of their history. The opposite of what national museums should do. This is grotesque, as you put it yourself.
Yeah, and it's not going to end well, folks. I can tell you, having lived all over the world, you can see where this is going. It's not going to end well if we don't take care of this. Mike Gonzalez, I want to thank you for coming on the program today. Senior fellow at the Heritage Institute. Really appreciate it, the Heritage Foundation. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for the work you're doing.
Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's an honor and a pleasure. All right, folks, check out the report. You can find it at the White House website. You can also find Mike's column on this at the Examiner, dropping on July 6th. Folks, we really do need to take care of this. It's not okay that our taxes are being used to indoctrinate the next generation of Americans, the next generation of politicians and business leaders. We have got to get a handle on this if we want to pass our country on to the next generation in better shape than we found it. I want to thank you for tuning in. I'm Alex Newman, host of the Sentinel Report. It's great to have you with us. Really appreciate all that you do for God and our country. Hope you had a wonderful and very blessed celebration of our nation's independence. We shall see you next week. Until then, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. God bless you all.